If your correspondence, your contact, your feedback's anything to go off, it became clear last week just how widely felt the anger and frustration is with Labor's renewables rollout. Now, last week I was in my old hometown of Witcherproof in Victoria, and over the weekend I went back that way but further afield, continuing to visit farmers with similar stories and a vow, they say, to never roll over to Labor's net zero agenda.
We're trying to save the planet and save the country, but we're going to lose so much in the process. So I don't think this net zero concept is going to work.
When it started, this never made any environmental sense. It never made any financial sense, and it certainly doesn't make social sense as well. So, you know, it's not going to be any good for Australia. We've got to start again and get a policy that's going to suit all of Australia for 50 to 100 to 200 years' time.
All of this comes at the expense of agriculture, so it's renewable energy at the expense of our food security.
Look what 150 years of agriculture, how tough that's been. Mother Nature, she's pretty powerful. We've managed to work with her, fight with her, but we're still here after that. So, absolutely. We can take on Mother Nature and make a living. We can take on net zero, Anthony Albanese. Doesn't matter, we're going to win.
The date, August 15, 2023. The day when farmers, fed up with being ignored, took their fight to the streets of Melbourne. It might have started as a protest against massive new transmission lines set to rip through their land, but it's now about so much more. Claims of bullying and intimidation by government officials, foreign-owned wind and solar farms, billions of dollars in subsidies, plus allegations of serious corruption. This is the human face of Labor's reckless march towards a renewables-only power grid for Australia.
G'day.
Hey, Peter, how are you?
So good to meet you in person.
It is, you too. Come have a look at this up this way, mate. We'll head up here and check out old Fabio. Yeah, come on, Rooster.
St Arnaud farmer Glendon Watt was the first to alert me to the growing backlash against a new transmission line that will run between Sydney and Melbourne and wipe out thousands of acres of productive farmland in the process. It's a battle he's even taken to Canberra as the campaign against Labor's destructive renewables agenda builds momentum.
When we were fortunate enough to be on your show, it was massive. It was kind of like, you know, finally...
Kicked it into gear.
Kicked it into gear. There's someone out there who cares about us, like you. Thank you, appreciate that. And it was kind of like, there's hope. You know, there's someone out there who's willing to listen, who's willing to share and willing to go, hey, that isn't right.
Yeah.
You guys aren't on your own in this. Like, you know, so that was huge when we started with you. I think, yeah, we're getting that momentum. We're getting people united. People are becoming more and more aware. And the city folk are starting to pick up on this green agenda, that it's not so clean, it's not so green, that it doesn't make sense, that, you know, it doesn't, like, I'm no engineer, but I can read their report and go, this is just full of contradiction. You know, it doesn't make sense, it's not logical.
Glendon and farmers like him, the length and breadth of our country, are sounding the alarm on the damaging reality of Labor's headlong march to net zero, forcing the entire nation to switch from reliable and affordable baseload power, coal, gas, potentially nuclear, to expensive and, quite frankly, unreliable green energy. It's these massive wind and solar farms that risk forcing farmers off the land and farming communities to the point of extinction. And here's why. As coal-fired power stations are decommissioned, we'll need a staggering 28,000 kilometres of new and upgraded transmission lines to transport the power generated by wind and solar to our big cities. The estimated cost? Well, right now, it's more than $500 billion. And if you think it's only the farmers who'll get hit here, think again. In the end, we'll all bear the cost as it gets passed on to our power bills.
They just go where it's easy for them to go to try and infiltrate and, you know, conquer and divide and try and conquer it. But the tactics are, it's not country tactics, not Australian tactics. It's just dirty communism. Like, it's just horrible.
What about police? Have police been involved?
Yeah, so police have been involved. And once again, it's kind of like, you know, if I was to bring a gun to this interview, what would you think? You'd be kind of, you know, you'd take a step back and go, holy, you know, smoke. So why are TCV bringing police to the interviews? Why are they bringing security to a community consultation? Like, it's just setting the wrong, in my opinion, it sends the wrong tone from day one. We're farmers. We're not not fighters. We're not going to hurt anyone. We want information, and we're there to seek information.
Accusations of underhand tactics, bullying and corruption was something I heard time and time again as we spoke to locals right across the region, including this from sixth-generation farmer Ben Duxon from nearby Kenya.
The dirty tactics are happening. They're happening all the time with land liaison officers, picking off vulnerable people and all that sort of stuff. So we can see their tactics and they're doing it. And from day dot, they've never conceded that this project mightn't go ahead. It's all about how it's going to go ahead in their eyes, and we've always pushed back.
The tactics of the bureaucrats and the officials is that's the old buffalo theory. They cut the weakest from the herd and attack it first because they can gang up and attack and kill one individual, for example. So the bureaucrats are the same. They come in and they try and find the weakest links in the community to pull them away and effectively, not brainwash, but, come with me, let's sign you up here, get the money today, it's all sorted. Undermining, underlying, dirty, they're, bullying techniques.
Last week in Witchyproof, farmers told me that government officials had called the police on them, even though it was the officials who were on the farmers' land. They told me about so-called consultation meetings now flanked by security guards. And it appeared that these intimidation tactics were happening here too.
And it's terrible. I think that in itself says a lot about how they operate and what they're trying to do. And if it was such a good project, they wouldn't need to be trying to cut people off and do tactics and undermine. They'd be able to sit in front of us, have a chat with us all, and everyone would go...
It'd be self-evident that it was a good thing.
Absolutely, exactly. And if it was self-evident, there'd be no need to have any of this rubbish. There'd be no police, there'd be no undermining tactics, there'd be no cutting people out, there'd be no contracts with disclaimers. It would be just a conversation like this and just say, this is what we're going to do, this is how, this is why, answer questions, righto, let's move forward.
We gathered as much information, and I think we've got to the stage where we've unpacked a lot of information out there about this energy plan, and we know it's no good. It's no good for Australia, and it's certainly no good for us as farmers out this area. But consultation, it's non-existent.
With us, they're deplorable. It's not negotiating at all. It's please come in and let's have a meeting and we'll listen and we will do nothing with your feedback. We've been at these guys for nearly 2 years and nothing we've done has changed their stance, their plans.
Tess is just the sort of young farmer that we desperately need to keep on the land. But at her family place just outside of Rapanya in northwestern Victoria, she's fighting against a massive foreign-owned wind farm that's to be built against her fence line. She's angry that taxpayers will spend billions to subsidise these massive turbines, and when the foreign company leaves after 20 years or so, what's left will cost upwards of $500,000 per turbine to decommission. A cost the foreign company won't pay, but farmers can't afford either.
We've had legal advice to that effect that there'll be shell companies and when the time comes to decommission there'll be no money to do so. And whatever you've made with hosting would never be enough to pay for the decommissioning yourself, which I think is conservatively at $600K per turbine.
$600,000 per turbine?
Yep, and that's quite conservative.
And when you think of the scale of them, I mean nearly 300 metres tall, and enormous blades, enormous engines, all the fire risk we know about that. But how do you even decommission something like that in a rural town like this?
Cranes and diesel and dig a hole and bury it, as best I can tell. It's currently what's getting built isn't recyclable.
This farming land in northwest Victoria is just the latest example of the sheer madness of Labor's renewables obsession. Prime agricultural land destroyed to make way for 145 massive wind turbines, each of them standing 280 metres high. Now, what's hard for this community to comprehend is that none of this green power is for them. They don't even benefit. It's all sent to the cities, and yet they will wear the brunt of it, as it risks forcing generations of farmers off the land.
As a farming community, we've got a lot of fights on our hands to be able to just do the practices we want to do and feed and clothe the world, which is what we want to do. We want to do it with as minimal red tape as possible. We've always conformed to regulations as well. It's never been an issue. And if this was good for Australia, we'd have no problem signing up to it. It'd be fantastic if it's great for the whole energy consumption in Australia and industry in Australia, but we know it's actually not, and it's corrupt. It's overseas companies coming in, profiteering out of it, taking our money offshore, and we can't get a stable system with this system they've got.
These transmission lines and renewable projects won't just destroy farms and impose heavy costs on consumers, they also bring significant bushfire risk, as explained to me by local CFA captain Peta Knights.
We've seen, plenty of footage of, wind turbines when they fall apart, or and they're machinery. So ultimately, there are a lot of moving parts, and a ton of oil up there. So if things go astray, there's plenty of, I suppose, expectation that if that goes wrong, there's going to be fire. So, I guess it's like any other fire risk. We'll need to deal with it, because if it starts there, it'll finish somewhere else. So we'll still need to manage it, because it'll finish on somebody else's properties.
Peta Knights has taken the extraordinary step of writing to the Victorian government, warning them about the bushfire risk. He says the government refuses to take any responsibility, instead expecting local volunteers like him to put their lives on the line while they prioritise their net zero agenda. And he's also alive to the ESG, or environmental report card focus, of the big corporates.
They need this renewable energy to get an easy tick so that they can cover the red spots on their report card, if you like. It's all, if you look at a colour-coded ESG report, they want a big green tick on the renewable energy and climate change. And
but they don't bear the brunt of it.
Absolutely not. It all comes at the expense of particularly our community and the people that are here. And we're very fond of it, and we're very fond of the people that are here. So we want to keep it that way, but we've got to be careful that all of this comes at the expense of agriculture, and so it's renewable energy at the expense of our food security and our ability to produce food.
And it's the hit on taxpayers that also concerns farmers like Alex.
There's no money in turbines unless you're the proponent. So millions and millions, billions in subsidies. The only people winning are the foreign investors, and that's the same for the Campbell's Bridge project.
How does it make you feel as a local who's been on the land for a long time?
Yeah, it's devastating. It just feels like we're under siege, and that our agriculture industry isn't valued. The money we put in and the work we do isn't actually valued by the Labor government in Australia.
A point echoed by Ben Duxon.
So there's a money grab going on here. Victoria's broke. They've got no money. They're coming out here and trying to railroad and bully us into accepting this program, and it's not. We're not going to put up with it. There's no way that we are going to sit down and lie down and take this just sitting back and doing nothing. We've rallied the troops. Everyone is up for the fight now.
The more I drove around northwestern Victoria, the more I found farmers and locals who'd read the reports, had gone to the meetings and discovered just how little they mattered in Labor's push to net zero and their desperate need for green votes in the city.
It's creating further pressure on electricity bills with all the transmission and the subsidies, but yeah, we haven't been able to get any traction with that argument yet, but we'll keep trying.
Frustrated, angry and ignored, Ben Duxon helped organise a group of local farmers to confront Victorian Premier Jacinta Allen at a rally in Bendigo last year.
We've got over 95% of people signed up saying they don't want anything to do with it. And we've told them, we've repeatedly told them that that's the case. We do not want anything to do with this. And by unpacking the plan, the whole energy plan that the Labor government's trying to implement, we've found out that the corruption's big, the money's too big into it as well. And we're not putting it up for it. We're sticking up for ourselves, but we're sticking up for the rest of Australia. Energy costs and food sustainability and availability into the future.
For these special reports, I've travelled hundreds of kilometres, meeting extraordinary and inspirational locals, people fighting for their future, their children's future, and they say Australia's too. They are living the nightmare of a reckless push to net zero, born out of political dogma, not good sense or even engineering reality. If this goes ahead, the financial costs will be crippling. Taxpayer billions, even trillions, all borrowed money used to subsidise foreign companies to tear up our farmland, devastate country towns and jeopardise our agricultural sector that helps us pay our way in the world. And for what? All the sacrifices these farmers will be forced to make won't make a scrap of difference given Australia's less than 1% of the global emissions problem. If any politician thinks his communities are going to roll over, well, they're dead wrong. This fight has a long way to go. These people aren't mucking around. They're fighting to survive with everything they've got. Can you win?
I reckon so. Yeah, there's too many of us and we care too much to let it go. I think there's every chance that the pushback's going to turn the tides for us, but it's going to be a long one and it's going to hurt in a lot of ways to get there, but I think so. Wouldn't do it if we couldn't. Actually, no, we probably would still fight even if we couldn't win. It's just not right. So yeah, we'll be fighting the whole way.